What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Thank you for tuning in. We got a special show, a different kind of show. You see what the title is. I got a panel here. I'll introduce these guys, but first and foremost, I want to let you know it's your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker, Coach Clee, coming at you with a special Father's Day Eve panel discussion show, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. The guys that are already on here, some are in the back office, others got time constraints, so they may come on late or they may have to leave early, but we're going to get everyone on here. First and foremost, I do have a surprise for everyone, and we are going to cut to that right now. Enjoyed that. I enjoyed making that. That was a little fun. That was a couple second long video. I see Shayla's on here. I know she's got something else going on right now, so I'm gonna kind of just totally ad lib. So we're gonna go out of order, and I'm gonna put her on here to shout out our sponsorship so she can be on her way. Give me 1 second. There we go. Shayla, you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay.
Right now, Shayla's showcase. The floor is yours.
Thanks. I apologize about the way I look right now. I'm at the football field helping cheerleaders get fitted for uniforms. So just a quick shout out. I apologize. I am going to have to ad lib a little bit, as Coach Clee already said, because I don't have the information directly in front of me because I didn't get a heads up about this. As some of you may know, I hear you breathing. Anyway, moving on to our sponsors for the month, we have the Pharr Agency. So Tiki Pharr, she has the Pharr Agency. So if you're somebody who needs assistance with restoring your credit, or if you have collections and things like that that you need to get rid of and you want to move forward, make sure you connect with her. We will make sure we put all of her information at the top of this live when we're finished. It is the pharragency.com. I believe that is correct. But like I said, Coach Cleo, make sure that's at the top of this header when we're finished. Then we also have Damone Buxton with D2 Training Solutions, which I think he might be on this panel here today. He offers the latest and innovating and cutting edge technology that offers the end user to have a little bit of fun while they're doing the training. So they take the boring out of training. And we'll have that information at the top of this slide as well. Last but certainly not least, we want to give a shout out to the Harrisburg area YMCA Camp Curtin branch particularly. Make sure you check out their website. They do a lot for the community. Cornerstone is their newest venture where they're looking to build affordable housing to help people in the community own homes. Also take some of the vacant properties and things like that out of the communities and again get some beautiful homes built. So make sure you check out their website as well. And then just a special shout out, happy Father's Day to all the fathers on the call and watching. I can't see who's participating, so I will be tuning in after this. And I'll turn it back over to you, Coach Clee.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate you finding time to tune in. You have a good rest of your day. All right. Let me get some things situated here. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is totally ad lib. We're going to have a lot of fun. We got a bunch of people. I'm going to introduce them here on the panel. It's going to be a discussion, a lot of fun, some seriousness. We're going to learn about each other, too. I don't think everyone on here knows each other, but I know everyone on here, and most of us of them are former guests on the show. First and foremost, I'm going to bring my brother, Clarence Stokes, in. Bam. Clarence, up here. Let me change the form. There we go. There we go. He's got his brand going on. He's going to be talking about some good things. Say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
There we go. I got Jason Brown right here, former guest on the show.
Morning, everybody.
We got Damone Buxton streamed in, former guest on the show.
Good morning, everybody.
There we go. We got Jamone Nelson tuning in from another state. Say good morning, everyone. Can you hear us? Jamone? I don't know if you can hear us or not. And we got Karl Singleton. Yep. Karl, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. How's everybody doing?
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know we got time constraints for some of you, and others will should be tuning in a little later as well. And please feel free to put the comments in the comment section. Anyone paying attention, feel free to ask me questions and tune in. First and foremost, we're all fathers, and it's Father's Day Eve. We're having a discussion about what the modern men and Father's Day. Who wants to start off by leading this question? Who was your first original role model? Was it your father? Was it your grandfather? Was it an uncle? What was your first father figure role model for you?
Clarence Jr.
Okay, and why is that? Go ahead.
Clarence Jr. He was my father. He's no longer here, but he taught me real life. You know, he was flawed, and he didn't. You know, he made no qualms about him being flawed, but he showed me things that I should do, and he showed me things that I shouldn't do by things that he was doing wrong. So even though, you know, he was he had his flaws, which I have my flaws. he loved me unconditionally and showed me what it's like to have a child and love them and be there for them, even though he wasn't always there, you know, at my little league games or whatever. Clarence ran, he in my early years, he ran the streets. He did whatever he did, but in his latter years, he before he passed, I could say he was definitely my best friend.
Okay, good. We'll go, Jason.
All right.
Mr. Brown, and I say that because I have kids. They call me Mr. Brown, or their friends do. But my dad's here, so he's still Mr. Brown. And a lot of kids. I come from a big family, and what I learned was the value of hard work. Lots of lessons, but I think making sure that we always had what we needed. Not always what we wanted, but definitely always what we needed. And for him not to graduate college, but for all his kids to go to college, that's an impressive feat.
Okay, thank you. Damone Buxton, you want to chime in?
I would have to go with everybody and say my pops. He definitely showed me that hard work ethic, you know, going to work every day and what that means, not only for him, but what that means for the family and his children, how to provide for the family and what that means, you know, how to take care of your money, all those different things, you know, that my father taught me. He's still around, so, you know, I still get to see him. He's going through a struggle now. That's why it means so much more to me, you know, this Father's Day, because I'm not sure how many I'm going to have left with him. But, you know, he was definitely my first role model.
Gotcha. Jamone Nelson.
Yeah, so I have to agree with everybody else. Same thing here. My dad was probably my biggest supporter all through my youth. Showed up to every single basketball game, even if he just got off work. I mean, sometimes gave, even when he didn't have a give, worked harder than anybody I've ever seen work in my life. So definitely was the person that I wanted to be like, and it still continues on to this day.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing. We got coming up. Karl Singleton, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, sure. So I'll definitely say, you know, my dad, and because he had human quality, and his sense of humanity. Although, you know, my mother and father split when I was 5, it was always a mutually respectful relationship. He was one that, no matter if you were the custodian or the CEO, he gave you the same level of respect and consideration. No matter if he was the custodian or the CEO, people could tell a difference. He's, you know, very mannerly, sharp dresser, always, you know, tight in his appearance, and you know, not a high school graduate, not a college graduate, but prided himself on being very well spoken, very amenable to others, and you know, we bonded. And he's had some health challenges since 2001. He's in a care facility, but even in his current state, he is still making friends. He is still complimented by, you know, healthcare staff. So shout out to the healthcare providers throughout the nation and globally. So he is still making friends and still making their day, as they say, when they're taking care of him. So yeah, just for the sheer sake of respecting fellow humans.
Okay. I think the sound kind of cut out a little bit. And I'll chime in as well. Role models that I've had. Some of you may know, some of you may not know that my dad passed when I was 2 years old. I have no memory of him at all. A role model for me was my grandfather, who was the pastor of the church in Mount Zion Baptist Church in Stilton. He died when I was in my early 20s, or just turned 20. And another role model was just watching my friends' dads, hanging out with them, just watching them. And I would emulate situations that I saw them in. or just kind of would play the role what I think they would do in certain situations and how to handle other certain situations. I know kind of playing the background a little bit, it kind of falls. You kind of wonder if you're doing the right thing when you're raising kids, because you don't know. With me, I had no model of what a father would look like in the household. So I just basically came at it from a way where things that I did not want my kids to do or experience, or try to direct them in the right way while growing up. And I see Junior Vega, he's on the other stream. He said he never had a father, so he doesn't know. I can relate to that. That's kind of seemed like that's a modern problem, and we got modern men on the board here discussing things along those lines. The fathers that we've had were role models, and some of us experienced some that modeled the role, and I think we can all attest that we followed positive people, or even if they did things negatively, we found the positive in it and worked it in a way that provided a better outcome for us and our children. Correct?
Yeah, I said correct. And also, you say, you asked about your first role model, as a father, and I would be remiss if I didn't name, I've had great men in my life that stood in that gap. While my father was alive, and why he's been gone. Always thought, uncles are probably the funnest people on earth because they can, they can act as a father, and they can act as a brother, and they teach you great qualities in life. Your uncle will do things with you that maybe your dad wants to, but he won't, because he knows he has to go home to her, and he don't want to get in trouble with her. So, your dad's probably irky. Yeah, go ahead and teach him this. I've had I want to name them by name. Larry Foster, Richard Foster, which is my mother's brothers. Billy Smallwood, which is my aunt's husband. He's gone. Alan Wilson, they called him Tonto. He's no longer here. He's one of my dad's best friends. Theron Dunbar, Moon. He's no longer here. He's one of my dad's best friends. Donnie Wansley. My Uncle Donnie's been there, from day one. Clee, you've been at his house. There's no debate in this next comment. Donnie Wansley has the best Super Bowl parties on earth, and there's no debate in it. If you find another one better than Donnie Wansley, let me know. And my Uncle Vince. My Uncle Vince is my dad's baby brother. He's only 7 years my elder. He's more like a brother, but he stood in the gap. When my dad passed. So these men, I have great admiration and I love these men. So we talk about fathers. Fathers is more than just a seed giver. We're fathers of many children. Some are coaches, and I've fathered hundreds of children, if not thousands. So we give. I'm say this word, Jason. I've heard you say legacy to many children who aren't our actual children. So I believe this platform, Clee, that you're having right now, as far as Father's Day swag, you're putting fathers out there in the limelight, to where I don't want to say Father's Day has been overlooked in the past. Mother's Day. Of course, mothers are super important, and we love them. But that father, the father he's the head. He's the lead of the household, and he should be leading the household, and he should be leading the community as well.
I love it, and I agree. I remember, sorry, I don't know if I'm here. There we go. I'm here. Heard a little bit of feedback. I agree. Growing up, you see Mother's Day was a big deal. You see Mother's Day commercials on TV. You go to the store, you see flowers all over the place. You see the card, Hallmark having special events. All the restaurants are booked up, and Mother's Day was a big deal. And then come around, I remember everyone went to church. Mother's Day was packed in church for Mother's Day as well. And it was a special cater to you. Everything was full bore. And then Father's Day, it was very secondary. Father's Day for me growing up, with no father in the house, it wasn't. I saw my grandfather get Father's Day cards. He may have had dinner made for him a few times, got a couple gifts or whatever, but sporadic throughout it hasn't been something that was expressed to the same level as Mother's Day. I'm not trying. I know there's two, male, female, emotional, logical, so many different things are involved with it. But Father's Day, even still today, for me, is not a big deal. I love both my sons. I appreciate them. I talk to them daily. So to actually have a specific day set out, Father's Day is every day for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny though. Clarence talked about, and I think that might be the first time I actually called you Clarence, because I've never called you by your first name. It's just Stokes. So that's just weird. So I'm never doing that again. But he went biblical. He was like having seeds. I'm like, okay, you just read Genesis and just be fruitful and multiply. And I laughed because I said that was my dad, right? We have a lot of, I have a lot of brothers and sisters. I'm like, Dad, you read the first book of the Bible and stopped. And you just made all these kids. But that was something, I was fortunate because I have older brothers. So where you mentioned uncles, and I have those too, my older brothers served in that role, not as a father, but just as a person to watch. And they had their kids maybe before I had mine. And even now, they walk me through some things because you're going to make mistakes. So having that network to help you out, and you mentioned a couple names, Stokes, but I would say in the Harrisburg area, two of the biggest names I think as father figures would be Herb Thompson, and you probably had him as a teacher, and John Leake. Those two, to me, served as father figures for a lot of people. And they don't have a lot of kids, right? So Leake has a daughter, and Herb has a son and a daughter. But you can get that inspiration, and I think the word mentoring, from a lot of people. And they don't have to be biological, but there's some special people in the Harrisburg area for sure.
Yeah. And I like, I go back to what Clarence said about coaching, and how you see a lot of children that way, and how you can touch a lot of children that way. And I go back to some of my mentors, back in the day, and people that I looked up to. One of my first coaches, Fred Heaps. He's no longer with us, but he definitely was somebody that I looked up to, somebody that helped me out. He actually was more, towards a father figure to me, by taking me to his house and getting me soda when we didn't have no food. When we were poor, he was, literally making sure I had something to eat, something to drink, and then, made sure, I got home on time after practice and got to practice, when we didn't have a car. So those are types of things that, as I grew up and I started coaching that, I need to make sure some of these children do. So, he instilled some of those things in me. I didn't have a whole lot of uncles. I had a lot of aunts, and nothing against aunts, but I didn't have a whole lot of uncles. So my older brother was somebody also that I looked up to. He was only, even though he was only a year and a half older than me, he just seemed so much more older than me. He knew the streets and all those different things, and I looked up to him for different reasons, in sports and the knowledge that he knew about different things kind of guided me in different ways, where my father didn't. And then my older cousin, who's 3 years older than me, Terrell Seward, he's actually from the Harrisburg area, but now lives in the Williamsport area. But he was somebody that guided me, from the time he came to live with us in 9th grade until he graduated and on, even to this day, giving me wisdom and advice about certain things. So he's always somebody that I looked up to and took advice from, you know. So there's like he said, there's multiple people along the way in your life that actually, you know, touch you in different ways and kind of mold you to be the person you are. Now, you know, being a coach that I was. Oh, and another person, Larry Moore, was I guess he coaches now for Harrisburg. In Harrisburg. He was formerly from Williamsport and used to coach me in Pop Warner. And my son is actually named after his son Bragan because he just had, you know, he instilled so many things in me coming up through Pop Warner. So he was one of the first black coaches I had back in the day, and really played that father on the football field. You know, I remember him cussing us out. You know, I remember him pulling us up, you know, gripping us up by our shirt and pulling us to the side. Don't act like this, and those type of things. Your dad wouldn't appreciate that. You know, just those type of things that coaches show you. You know, just instill some of those things in me that I now, as I coach or when I coach, you know, I try and do the same thing. So.
Good answers. Good answers. I know one thing. I told Clarence this before many years ago that my grandfather was my grandfather. I saw him as Pop, as the child version of me. I did not act I had my first adult conversation, not knowing at the time, having my first adult conversation with him would be our very last conversation, period. And I was reserved in that conversation because I was entering adulthood I was 20. So there was a lot of questions that I did not know I should ask, or there was questions that I felt like I had time I should ask that I could ask later. But one thing that always stuck with me was at his funeral was he was Pop to me, like I said, but then I heard his eulogy and I heard how long his eulogy, and then I heard all his accomplishments he made through his life. I was like, he was the man. And a lot of people, I hear this a lot. A lot of people hear they work from the eulogy backwards, whether it's your own eulogy backwards or someone else who is inspiring. You hear their eulogy, and for me personally, I want to top his eulogy. I wanted my eulogy to be so good that my sons or grandkids or whoever else in the family is like, wow, he was the man. And I want to take the yardstick and move past what he did.
That's hilarious. You know, my pop was the same. You know, my dad's dad, we called him Pop as well. And I remember him, you know, the hard handshakes, you know what I mean? The one that put you to the ground, you know, and Pop stop, you know, and all of those different things. And then, you know, when he passed away, and like you said, the eulogy was just, wow, you know, this guy was amazing. And the amount of people that actually were at his funeral that I never met before, you know, until, you know, those type of things happen. I'm like, he was the man. Like you know, you hear stories and, you know, you see things, you know, when you're around him and stuff, but you don't really get the immenseness of it until, you know, certain things happen. And you're just like, wow, he was the man. Like,
yeah.
You know,
and sometimes you don't even understand how much you say. Everyone says give the flowers while they're here, and sometimes you don't even know how many flowers they deserve while they're here until you hear the accomplishments when they're already gone, unfortunately.
I mentioned John Leake, and it's funny because I was at his service, so we talk about the eulogy backwards, and that might have been one of the hardest to stand there and look at Miss D, but knowing him for so many years. And we're talking about people you all described that were here, but I've traveled around the country and they say, well, where are you from? Harrisburg. How's John Leake? Never seen that before in another person, where it just became he's synonymous with a whole city. And that's how impactful a person can be. But if you talk to people, and I'm pretty sure you talk about your pop-pops, and I put John Leake in the same category, they didn't tell you all the things they did. You wouldn't have known any of that, never led with it. And I didn't know anything until I walked into his house. And I'm downstairs and I'm looking at all these certificates and plaques and degrees. And I'm going, when did that happen? Because that just never came up. So some of the things we're hearing, or at least I'm hearing, is about humility and being humble. People who got it, they just got it. And they share it, but they share it in a way where it's not self-serving, and that's really special.
I go back. I'm listening to and about my pop and he was the man. And listen, Reverend Thomas Orestes Wilson. If you didn't know, he was the man. That's Clee's grandfather. And or when when I married his granddaughter, his baby, I remember the day of the wedding. We're in the back, and he opened up the church. He opened up the back door of the church. He said, "You can go." I said, "Huh?" He said, "This is your last chance to get out of this. You know, you can get out of here now. But I'm telling you right now, if you go through with this, it's for life." And he meant that. You know, I know he meant that. And he had such an aura about him that when this man walked around town, I mean, Clee, did you ever see him in sneakers? Like he never wore sneakers. I think he cut grass in shoes, like in church clothes. Like this man had such an aura about him, but
he did.
I go back to that scene in it was Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. I forget what movie it is.
Rush Hour.
And he said, "My daddy, you know, my daddy could beat your daddy." You know, and that's how we feel. You know, like you talked about John Leake, Jason, and you know how he meant the world to me. I'm in the position in my career because of John Leake. You know, he pushed me to go. He gave me that extra oomph. And I met him when I was a young 22-year-old pup. And I still had 22-year-old tendencies in it. If you knew John Leake, he wasn't about playing. And I was all about playing. And he used to yell at me. But before he passed, I can say, you know, he loved me as a son. I can say that. And I loved him, you know, as like, you know, the father figure. But we do, like, I think sometimes we are so humble, we don't talk about our accomplishments. And Clee, you talked about the resume and working back, and like you want to be, what's it, colder than, you know, the man that I leave a legacy. But I do believe that while we are making these accomplishments, and you said, Jason, in the basement of John Leake's house, like all his accomplishments were there. We need to make a conscious effort to make sure that the accomplishments that we are getting, that we document them someplace so we can leave it for our children, so our children and grandchildren can say, yeah, daddy was the man. Mm-hmm. You know, granddad was the man. You know, it's nothing wrong with that.
I agree. I like that. And that kind of segues into a question I want to ask too. Just talking about our accomplishments and wanting to leave a legacy. And through leaving a legacy, you got to go through some hard times. And going through hard times, I say it on the show often, our character building moments, because character building moments they make you appreciate the outstanding days that much more better. And it's true. You have a character building moment that you're just being germinated to grow, to blossom, to produce fruit. We all have kids on here, kids that are various ages and various ends of life. Some are, I don't think we have young kids, totally young kids like babies, and we have adult kids as well. I want to ask a question as in, what were some of the hardest, maybe decade or years or moments with your child that you knew it was just a hard run? It was just hard. You didn't know where you were going to get advice from. You didn't know how to deal with the situation or the time or whatever it may be. But eventually you got through it, and you're glad you got through it because you know without having that moment would not have produced the person they are now. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Can I start with
hey.
Mine is my first child, Miracle. When you know, when Miracle was born at 5 months, you know, she weighed 1 pound. 1 pound, was it 8 ounces, 13 inches. She was very premature, and I remember when she was born, the doctor said, you know, if she makes it, you know, she's gonna have some serious problems, some serious disabilities if she makes it. And this is my first child. I am now a daddy, and I was like, wow. My first crack at this. I messed up. I'm blaming myself. For some of the things that I did in the past. I'm like, wow, it's coming back on me, and I like, Lord, help me. And Clee, T.O. Wilson came in the room with such power and asked us, what's wrong with y'all? Why are y'all so sad? Like, my baby, she might not. And he said in a calming voice that I believe 1,000% at the time, he said, that baby's going to be okay. Like, huh? Ain't nothing wrong with her. She's okay. And here we are 24 years later. She's and we all think that our children are the best, and but she graduated high school with no problems, honors, went to college, graduated there on honors, and now she's in, getting her master's degree. So going all the way back 24 years ago, when Reverend Wilson came in, a father figure came in and said, there's nothing wrong with that baby. He put a calming on me to let me know, okay, I got this fatherhood. Now, of course, I had issues with it, I've dropped her, why I worked a midnight shift, and I don't know if my wife ever noticed or not. She might be watching, but yeah, worked the midnight shift, went and got her. I'm holding her in my arm, and I fell asleep and I dropped her. And my dad, Clarence Jr., if he could, he would have punched me right in my face, man. The look on his face and the disgust on his face, like, yo, you just dropped my baby. My bad. And one day I was watching her and working midnight shift, and she got a hold of a razor blade. And I I locked her in the room with me, but I fell asleep, and next thing you know, she's screaming, and I look up, I see blood. I thought she actually took the razor blade and was like brushing it, but she cut her hand. I had to take her to the hospital. So, trials and errors with that first child, man. But you eventually get it right. But like I said, going all the way back to the original question, I say 24 years ago when Reverend T.O. Wilson came in and said, like, you ain't nothing wrong with it. You got this.
And not to come in real quick, I remember an incident too. It's a more funny one where you were probably working night shift. She was real young. You were watching the Eddie Murphy movie, and she started repeating Eddie Murphy lines at a very young age. And I think y'all had an event or something that that you guys had to go to, and she kept saying that it was a certain word. I believe it starts with March, and the second word is like fourth, but it's not March. It was something along those lines. and she was saying it, and she even turned it into a song, and you were trying to ignore it, hoping that it would just die down, and instead it intensified.
Nice job, Dad.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I told Stokes, nice job, Dad. Way to go. Way to go.
Damone, have you have any hard times that you like to share?
Oh man, I mean, I'm kind of with him with just some of the things that go through life. I remember one time specifically with me having my child, and my wife was at work, and this is one of the things that you just, as a father, you just look back and you're like, wow, I can't believe I did that. But I decided that I fell asleep, and I wake up to my son choking on a penny. So that was like one of the craziest moments in my life, because at that point in time, it was like just a month prior to that, I was trained for CPR, at the job that I had. But you never know in a situation what you would do, and I froze up. So I'm like, they tell you not to do the back pat thing. So that's one of the first things I tried was the back pat. And then I'm doing the finger swipe, and I'm doing the Heimlich and all these different things. And I'm freaking out. And this is going on for like 5 minutes, and I think I seen everything flash before my face. In that 5 minutes of time, my son could potentially die. He's turning blue. I'm trying everything I can, but I can't feel what's in his throat. My wife isn't here. I'm going to be a bad father. Like, what's going to happen? I'm going to go to jail for killing my child. Like, all these things just flashed in front of my eyes. But then all of a sudden, something just said, just stick both your fingers down his throat and just, if you don't get it, just push it. And nobody ever tells you to do that, but I just, and I pushed the penny and it just broke loose and went down and he swallowed it. After 5 minutes, and the color came back and everything was great. I don't know who told me that, but it wasn't something I normally would have thought. So I just kind of felt like there was a kind of an intervention there. But that was one of the scariest moments with my children coming up. But also recently, I would say over the past 2 or 3 years, with my oldest, has just been going through some things. And just some hard situations that, you had somebody on the show, Clee, that dealt with certain things, suicide, stuff like that. And it's hard. It's a hard situation to deal with, when your kid is telling you things like that, and things aren't worth it, and just, it's almost like you get yourself to a point to where you're like, oh my goodness, like if it happens, I'm going to prepare myself for it. But you never know. You know what I mean? So that's another, like, it's just it was so hard for a couple of years to deal with. It's like, do you give up? You know what I mean? Do you try? And you can only do as much. He's old now. Like, he's like 25. So he has to do things for himself. Like, you can't just really push him that way, short of, hey, I'm going to commit you, so it's just kind of some things that, he had to deal with. So, and finally he's dealt with those things and things are great. We're moving forward. But there's just things you don't have answers for. You don't. You try and be the best parent you can, and you start thinking about where you went wrong and why your child feels this way. And it's just things, you know what I mean? And you don't have the answers. You can't give him those answers. Some of the things that, they're stressing about, we grew up as, toss it over a shoulder. You know what I mean? It is what it is. You move on, you live life, and you don't worry about that stuff. But, just this is different generation of children and it's just, so it's been a tough time, but we're coming through that. We're on the bright side of that now. So, but that has been a really tough couple of years dealing with that. But, he's a great child, like 4.0 student in college, high school, great athlete, went to college to play baseball, excelled in that, batted 500. Like, the kid is amazing. It's just certain things, peak out and, but yeah, definitely a tough situation.
I believe it.
I'm sorry. I need to acknowledge he said batted 500. There's people in the Hall of Fame with batted 300. So he's talking about batted 500. Kudos to him.
Yeah, he was amazing. But things happen. How kids grow up and then they just like, they fall away from the sport. They fall out of love with the sport. And you're just like, as a father, I'm like, no, because he was playing down in Pittsburgh at Seton Hill. And then he transferred when we moved down here to Harrisburg. He transferred to Messiah and was playing baseball there and was like, finally, we can come and see you play again now. You're not 3 hours away, traveling all over the, country playing baseball and we can't see you play, So finally moved to Messiah and it's like, yes, all right, we're going to get to see him play. And he just decided that, baseball wasn't for him anymore. And I'm like, me and his mom was like, and as a father, I'm like, no, we played travel ball. We've done it, all through from the time he was, 7, 8 years old, all the way up to 19. He's even went to the World Series out in Klamath Falls, Oregon. So we were out in Oregon watching him play in the World Series for Babe Ruth 18U. That was amazing. But I think at that moment was the peak of where he could reach. You know what I mean? He thought that he could reach, he didn't. I think he realized that it's a 1 in a million shot to make it to the big leagues. And it's never going to be another World Series. And he did that with his best friends. You know what I mean? Like the friends that he grew up with and played baseball with forever, they finally all got together and made it to the World Series. And I think that was kind of a moment where he's like, you know what? It's not going to get any better than this in the sport. You know what I mean? So he decided to retire from the sport, at the age of 19. And I was like, but, I definitely support him on that as a father. You know what I mean? Like your knees are getting bad. He was a catcher. You know what I mean? So, you don't want to see them knees get bad and the back get bad and all those things because then you live with that for life. So, and as a father, I would be being ignorant saying, no, you need to continue playing because I want to see you play at Messiah. So, but,
Yep.
Clay,
Good.
I'm just jumping in. My story can't touch any of those stories, but you just said my son, he was amazing. I know you were talking about baseball in that context, but I'm just going to challenge you. Your son is amazing. Like he didn't stop being amazing. He just stopped playing baseball.
Yes.
And it's just the words we use sometimes, and it's what they hear. And Stokes, we just talked about this 2 days ago, intent versus impact. So I know what you intended, but the impact is like, I'm no longer amazing because no, you were still amazing. You just don't play baseball.
Powerful.
Yeah, powerful. And the stories you shared were powerful. I have 2 girls, so the relationship with girls is just different. And my voice to them is different, right? So mom could say, "Get over here," they don't run. Get over here, little feet come running. And when I learned that was powerful, I ran with that. I'm like, I'm never chasing a kid. You got 3 seconds, get over here. And I never had to chase them. But my youngest, Jocelyn, I scared her once. My nephews, and I'll admit, I am hard on little boys. My nephews, because the world is hard. I love them, but I'm hard. And hard's not physical. Like, it's not a physical thing. But the expectations are huge. And I yelled at one of my nephews, and Jocelyn runs up the steps and slams the door. And in my house, we're not running, we're not slamming doors. And I'm like, "What's wrong?" She said, "You sound like Mufasa." And I'm like, Lion King's my favorite movie. So first, I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like, I sound like Mufasa. But she's like, "You scared me." I'm like, "Well, how?" "You yelled." I said, "But I've never yelled at you." She's like, "But you might." And I'm like, "Well, the care that you have to take, or I think you take with little girls as a dad, is just so very different." And you got to be present in the moment for all kids. And we all have life. And again, you all were saying we work, we're coaches, we get pulled in a million different ways. And they just want you to be present. And I didn't recognize that when they were little. Like, "Dad, sit with me to do my homework." Like, you don't need my help. You can add, like, just do your homework, leave me alone. But it really was, they wouldn't do their homework until I came home. So I'm like, okay, I need to get home early so they feel comfortable. They didn't really need me to do anything. They just wanted my time. And they were little, they couldn't express it that way. And when I figured that out, I'm like, oh, great, they want me. But then they didn't want me anymore. When they got 13, 14, they didn't want me anymore. And that was the biggest hurt, because I just wanted to be with you, but they just wanted to be far away from you. Didn't stop loving me, but they were growing into that deal. Now that they're older, they're both college students. So Jocelyn will be a freshman, and Jessica is starting her master's program. Now they want me again. But I wanted it when it was 13 to 14. When you come home, you put the key in the door, and they run to you, and they stop running. And I'm like, I just wanted that back. I wanted you to come to the door and brighten up my day. So fatherhood's amazing.
Yeah. I can attest to that. I've gone through with Nazir. He was one, and I got my oldest son. I had to split time with him. His mom lived in North Carolina, so I had got to see him sporadically. So every time I saw him, months had passed by, and he was a bigger kid. He always looked different. He was getting older each time, but he was a very happy, upbeat kid. Then teenage years happened. And in those years, he had a couple traumatic events that happened in his life as well. He kind of shut down. Now that he's a young adult, he's coming out of his shell. He's working and building on himself, and we communicate more often. We communicate more like young man to old man, as opposed to father and child anymore. And my youngest son, he's a teenager. He used to be up under me all the time. And work would pull me away from the house often. And now that it doesn't pull me away as much as it used to, he's at the teenage years where, I'm good. Like, hey, we both like Marvel movies. Well, a new Marvel movie comes out, let's go watch it. I might just go watch it with my friends, or why don't we wait till it comes on something and we can watch it like together after we both already saw it or something. It's that we're not going to go watch it together for the first time anymore. And I get it. I mean, he's a teenager. He's got his own friends. He's got his own life. I think we've all gone through that as well.
No, you got to get that back, man. The Marvel Thursday night when it first come out, I let my kids almost missed school just so I could be first to see the Marvel movie. So yeah,
Here, I got something.
Figure that out.
I got something. This is just for you. That was made by Damone, and he has no idea how much I am a Marvel fanatic, and I know Jason knows it. So that when I saw that, I was like, that's the lead-in for almost all of them now.
That is hilarious because I had no idea that you was a Marvel fan when I created that. I just put that together, and I was like, this is really cool. Let me hit him off with this, and then you was like, dude, I'm a huge Marvel fan. Like, that's amazing. And I'm like, wow, okay, well that's cool.
Yeah, man, I fell in love with that instantly. I like that's gonna be used often.
Nice.
Jason, you said something about when you scared your daughter when you yelled at your nephew. And it's amazing how much our children watch us and take in. And when you said that, I go back to an incident with my nephew, Clee's son, his youngest. He when I was coaching at the local school district here, and Saran was the ball boy. Clee, I never knew this. You told me this. But Uncle Clarence is different than Coach Stokes. They're two different people, and he had only seen me as Uncle Clarence. He never seen me as Coach Stokes. And when Coach Stokes was on the field, you said, Clee, I scared him because I guess I said some few choice words and my voice got a little louder, a little deeper. And I like I said, I never knew, but he paid attention to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was said. Kids watch. I'm sorry, Clee, but kids watch. They watch everything. And we started off saying who was our, first father figure, and we really were saying what we watched. We watched that you didn't wear sneakers. We watched how, clean you dress. We watched how you moved through the city. We watched, and now our kids are watching. And we're always trying to say the good things, but they watch us when we mess up. They watch us when we make mistakes. And when they're young, they don't bite their tongue. I mean, they just tell you that Dad, you're not a good dad. If you ever heard that from a kid, that will hurt you. And we're all thinking, I'm the best dad ever. Right? So I finished reading Common's book, and he's saying the same thing with his daughter. It's like, we work hard, we're doing all this to provide for our kids. And in our mind, we're saying we're great dads. Because I work hard, I'm a provider, you got a house, you never had to worry about food, all that stuff. We're great dads. And they're going, no, you're not. And I'm like, I don't know how to process that. And I'm an adult, right? I can't process not being a good father. And it's not that you're bad all the time, but there is something that you did, and you got to own it. You just got to say, you're right. At that moment, I wasn't, but work to be better. So there's a gut punch for sure.
I don't know if you're looking at the comments, but did you see the comment from Gary Grant? He asked a question.
Yeah. Here it is. How do you deal with a child you have that's not very close to you on this Father's Day? It's really tough. I mean, I can answer it. I dealt with it for maybe 20 years. Because most time, my son, actually, this would be the weekend where I would get him and go down to North Carolina and pick him up and get him for the summer. But it's really tough because it seems superficial because you don't have the years, the school years when they're a child. I think you just enjoy the day. You enjoy the moment. You enjoy the time that you have with them when you have them. Again, like I said earlier in the show, that Father's Day for me isn't just the Sunday that's the second or third Sunday in June when it is. It's the moments that I have when I the picture that I showed during the video, when I got to spend have both of my sons at the beach, was a good feeling. I've always wanted to have both of my sons with me at all times while they were growing up. I'm a huge proponent for that. So to have those moments and watch my sons interact and watch them get along and watch them play games together, watch them read together, watch them describe things and learn from each other. Those are my Father's Day moments. Sometimes you gotta find them in the moments and not look for them in the day.
I agree with that. That's powerful. You know, you definitely got to look for those moments and hold on to them dearly and cherish those moments, you know, because fatherhood is Father's Day is every day, you know, like somebody said earlier on the call, it's every single day. Like I cherish those moments. I remember one day they were up at the Grahams way up north, and my oldest brought my youngest back home, and they drove in the same car. That was just like huge because they're like 8 years apart. You know what I mean? You think they would fight all the time, but they don't. They're like really close friends. So later on that evening, my youngest is a YouTuber, puts this video together for YouTube. It pops up on my phone, and here they are doing this lip sync thing the whole way down the road with all this different music. I mean, from one genre to the next, man. I mean, you name it, it's in there. And they were singing back and forth, just taking turns. The facial expressions that they were doing into the cameras when the other one was doing it. Those are just powerful moments for me, even though I wasn't there. You know what I mean? Like I could see the love that they had for each other there. Like it was just the things that I did as a father, you know what I mean? And my wife too, you know, but was working out to keep them close, you know what I mean? For them to have those moments. And then to put up, but to solidify it in a moment that's going to last forever, because now it's out on the web. And now you have this video with your brother that you guys are just having a great time and doing baby food eating challenges and cutting that video up, just things like that. Yeah. That you know that maybe you're doing a great job, as you know, that you are doing a great job as a father and parents, you know, when you know you have your children acting like that, and they're just giving you those happy moments that you can think about.
Good. I got a tough question. It's going to be what we've seen. Have we ever seen your father figure, role model? Did you ever see them in a position where they cried? And also part two of the question, have your kids or anyone who looks up to you, whether it's niece, nephew, kids that we've coached, or any kind of guardian that we have any kind of guardianship over, have they seen us cry? I can answer that quickly. No, for both, on my end.
I can answer it. My father, I think I've seen him cry twice. And the first time we were at the cemetery for his parents. And we'd always go out, Mother's Day, Father Day, we'd go to the cemetery. And we would all be together. But then he'd have his time by himself. We go to the car, and he's there. For one reason, I didn't go to the car. Like I went, but I did the 52 fake out and ran back.
Mm-hmm.
And I caught him. And I didn't know how to react because I'm young, and I saw my dad cry, and I thought my dad was like invincible. I'm like, Dad doesn't cry. Like he cries, and that I remember that was the first time I saw my dad cry. And again, my daughter's watched. My youngest told me, "You never cry. Why don't you show emotion?" I'm like, "Sure, I cry." But I'm thinking like they've never seen me cry. And the only time they saw me cry was I gave my mother's eulogy. Yeah. So it's weird as around death, but yeah, that's the only time my kids saw me cry.
I've never seen my dad cry ever, and like I said, you look at your dad, and that's the strongest person. It's cliches, but yeah, my dad's my superhero, and yeah, I've never seen him cry. Now, as far as my children, they have seen me cry. I guess that's a trait or a quality that I didn't get from my dad. Like my dad wasn't a crier. I'm a crier. I cried on Nestor the long-eared donkey. When he stepped on his ears, man. So they seen me cry, but I've never seen my dad cry.
I think I see my dad cry once, and that's when he buried his father. You know, my pops. And that's the only time I've ever seen him cry. Other than that, my dad is a very, very private person when it comes to that type of stuff. He doesn't show emotion unless you're laughing or he's making you laugh. That's about it. And I think sometimes he does that to refrain from crying in front of people. So that's his defense mechanism. And I think I kind of got the same thing, you know, to refrain from crying. I laugh a lot, or I try to make other people laugh to refrain. But my children have seen me cry once or twice in certain situations. One was about my mother and the other one was about my father. So, but there was never, you know, I try not to do that around them. I try not to let them know like there's anything going on. I always try to play that role, you know, but, you know, I'm an emotional person anyway, and you can only hold it back so far. But, you know, for my kids' sake, you know, I try and hold it back as much as possible.
Interesting all the way around. I know I growing up in a predominantly female house, I remember, and some of us may have experienced this as well, where if you get in trouble or you get hurt, you know, suck it up. Don't hold it back. Be tough about it. Don't cry about it. Or just kids in the neighborhood. I remember, you don't cry about it. What are you, a sissy, you a wuss, or whatever names they would say back at the time. So you learn how to deal with whatever situation or whatever pain by holding things in. And then learning how to do that, you become, as you get older, that becomes the norm. I know I've never seen any of my friends' dads cry. I haven't seen my grandfather cry. I haven't seen any male that I've looked up to from childhood to teenager years. I haven't seen cry. My sons, they haven't seen me cry. It's just that's the norm. That was the norm. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. That's just how things have played out.
Oh, I'll tell you something that's wrong. If you ever had your hand slammed in the car door, it's not a pleasant feeling. So my youngest brother did it. We're kids, right? And he just slams it, and my hand is in the door, and I'm in front of the post office in West Philadelphia, and I'm about to yell. And my father looked at me and said, "You better not cry." Now my hand is in the door, and that was his words. "You better not cry." And I just froze and like, guess I better not cry. And you learn, like you're saying, you learn to internalize that. Not saying it's right, but you learn at an early age what the expectations are based on who's around you. And the expectation was suck it up. But I did not pass that to my girls. I didn't pass that message to them. The message to them is, if you're going to be upset or if you're going to be happy, talk through it, right? Tell me why you're happy. Tell me why you're sad. Let's talk about it. So we don't have to pass everything down. Some stuff we say we're going to rock with it. Other stuff we're going to leave it where it was and just try to do better.
There's a comment from Andre Brown right there. It is a detriment for us men not to cry and show more emotion in front of our kids. Oh, I'm sorry, not a comment, a question. Is it a detriment for us men not to cry and show more emotion around our kids?
I think a detriment. I don't know, but I think it's a society, and even some of us on this panel have shown that crying is a sign of weakness, which I believe our fathers, the older generation, that's how they was brought up. I don't believe it's a sign of weakness. I believe it's a sign of strength. If like, I think we don't cry out of pain, physical pain. We cry mostly out of emotional pain. And to show your emotions, I believe is a sign of strength. So I mean, I don't know about is it a detriment? You know, not to cry. I guess it's your own personal beliefs and you know, feelings behind it. Like I said, I'm a crier. I mean, sometimes I wish I didn't show my emotions, but Clee, you tell me.
I was gonna say it.
Go ahead.
He wears his emotions on his face. You catch him. And so if someone says something he disagrees with, you catch him. You'll see right there in broad daylight. Face a raisin.
Bitter beer face.
That's why I don't play poker, because I can't do it.
I really think it depends on the situation.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I just think it depends on the situation. You know what I mean? Like there are a lot of situations that you probably shouldn't be crying for. I mean, but that just depends on the person as well. I think things such as along the lines of death, in the family, things like that. It's great to show emotion. I don't think that's a detriment at all. But if you're out on the basketball court, and somebody kicks you in the shin, you know what I mean, and it doesn't really hurt, but you're gonna cry about it. I mean, that's a different situation. You know what I mean? That's like, because I tripped over a sidewalk. I'm at the park with my kids. I scuffed my knee on the sidewalk, and now I'm crying. Like that's that's different. I mean, that person's gonna be that person. I mean, if they cry because they scuffed their knee, whatever. I mean, I'm never gonna judge anybody. But like I said, it just depends on the situation. Death. Like I dropped my son off at college, and I lost my mind. You know what I mean? My firstborn. Like that was. I don't care who you are. You drop your firstborn off at college and you see him in that rearview mirror and they're just becoming a man or a woman or whatever, and you're driving off. That's gonna hurt you in your heart, man. Like that, I bawled like a baby for like hours, man. Like it was tough. Like I don't think that would be a detriment. You know what I mean? Like I'm losing my firstborn to college or something like that. So that's just let me know that, hey, I feel like I did the best as a father. Now it's time to push them out, and they're going to do their thing. So it's crying out of a sense of happiness, you know what I mean? That I felt like I'm dropping him off at college. Like I did what I needed to do. He did what he needed to do. Like he's in college. So there's just certain different things. Like you said, is you're not crying out of pain. Like you're crying out of something different. So that's just how I feel. I just think it depends on the situation.
I agree. I think also showing emotion is something that is learned as well. I think it's been suppressed. I'll speak for myself. It's been suppressed. It's something I had to work on and develop. I went through. I saw a therapist a few years ago, which had me actually do some self-reflecting, and I think was a good thing because self-reflection helps you become a self-actualized person. You learn more about yourself, so you can become a better person. Showing emotion and not just happy emotions, angry, frustration, sadness, all of them they're a part of life anyway. So that instead of suppressing them, to actually experience them and let the kids see them through you, they will develop and become the best versions of themselves as well. Because you have your spiritual person, you have your physical person, you have so many different styles of who you are. I think you get what I'm saying. So if you're working out in the gym and you're building your body up, but you're not working on your emotions, eventually something in your life or something in your mind's going to crack, and you've got a physical strong body, but mentally you're not able to deal with that situation because your emotions aren't as strong as your physical body is as well. So I think in developing and learning about yourself and your emotions, I think that's a strong and powerful event.
I think it's helpful for all of our kids to see how dad reacts, how mom reacts, right? If you're able to have that balance, and again, that's not saying they got to be in the same house, or just can they see how dad reacts, how mom reacts, because we're not the same. And I think that makes it better to say there's multiple ways to approach anything. It's funny that you look at your kids and there's things about them that you can see that it's just like you. And you probably are like, yeah, they're just like me. But there are also some things about you that you might not like. And you still see that in your kids. And you're like, I wish you were not like me at that moment. But we have such a great influence on who they become. But at the end, they're going to become their own person like we all did. We just want to help guide them down that path. And if they can avoid some of the mistakes, not all mistakes, they got to screw some stuff up. But if they can avoid the big ones that are just hard to get past, I think we're doing our jobs.
And you kind of segued into another question I have. What do you see in yourself Again, these are two-part. It's going to be generational. Of course, it's going to be from the father figure and then what we pass on to our kids. What do you see in yourself that you did or did not like and the father figure that you actually caught yourself in the act of doing? Like, wow, I can't believe I just said that. Or, wow, I can't believe I just did that. Or, wow, I remember them saying this when I was young and now I'm actually living it. And it's very true. And I totally understand it. Or when you see your kids do something that you didn't even know that you passed down to them, or they repeat something that you said subconsciously, and they're repeating it and they took it as gold.
Well, again, I have a lot of brothers and sisters, so multiple times, and not in a good way, they lash out. You're just like dad, and it's when I'm trying to like, just do what I tell you to do, which I'm not your dad, but as your older brother, I probably said that. Just do what I tell you to do. And yeah, you're just like dad. And I always fight back. I'm not like dad. And my dad would say, you're more like me than you realize. I'm like, no, I'm not, but I think I am. But my kids would say, you're not always flexible. Right? And really, when it comes to time, and Clee, you heard it, I don't like to waste time. I try to maximize as much as I can in a day. And they're saying, everyone doesn't think like you. Like, you can take a day off. I'm like, it's a Saturday. To me, Saturday's not a natural day off. It's just a day. You can do the same stuff on Friday or Saturday. It's a day. And they're like, we don't think like that. So I got that from my father. He would say, make hay while the sun shines. I'm like, what are we talking about hay? I live in the city. I've never seen hay. I don't know about any of this crap. And it's like, when you're up, you work. So I'm up and I go. And then when I stop, it's because I'm going to bed. But the whole time I'm up, I'm trying to grind. And grind's not always physically going to work. Saw you this morning, Clee. I showed you 2 books I'm reading. I'm up, my brain is going. And they're like, Dad, everyone doesn't operate like that. So I had to learn to ease up a little bit. And they earned it. They're both great students, high academic achievement students. But I know I push because my father pushed.
Okay.
I probably have to say some of the same, just to push the grind, work ethic. I think my dad passed that to me. The want to grind all day, every day, and make that money. It's the same as my kids. I got a 17-year-old who, like I said, is on YouTube, and he makes probably $1,000 a month himself doing videos and stuff like that, and with his group. So I think that's something valuable that my dad passed on to me, and that I see in my children. And my youngest, or my oldest, actually is like a penny pincher, man. Like, he doesn't like to spend any money unless it's somebody else's. And
unless it's yours.
Yeah, right. Like, I spend my money all day. But my youngest is the same way. Like, he'll have all this money in the bank, and like he's like wants to spend our money. When we tell him you got to spend your money, then it's like, oh well, then I don't need it. I'm like, okay. I guess I was kind of that way when I was growing up too. So I kind of see that in them that I didn't, I would have spent my parents' money all day, but didn't want to spend my own. But yeah, I still grind for my money. I think my kids also got my emotionalness, because I'm an emotional person. That's just how I always been. And I see that in them. And sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, like, no, please don't, not there. Like, this isn't the time. But it's a good thing on one side. So, but wish they wouldn't have got that one.
And Clarence, I don't know if you heard. Did you hear the question?
Yeah, it's kind of, I would say I want to say the I don't care syndrome, but kind of like the patience. If I can't do, or if I can't handle situation, if it's beyond my control, I don't worry about it. And I think like my youngest has taken on that trait from me. I got it from my dad. My mom, she looks at me sometimes like, you act just like your father. Like, why don't you care? It's like, I care, but I can't do anything about it. Why worry about it? And that was one thing that my dad was. He was like, it didn't faze him. It didn't faze him at all. It gave the appearances like he doesn't care. And he cares, because I go through the same thing, and I was like, sometimes I act as if, it doesn't faze me, and it's like, why worry about something that you can't control? And if you read our book, No Shade All Light, you would know there's a story in there about patience. How do you practice patience? You wait. You wait. So that's, I guess the gift of patience is, was passed down to me from my father to actually my youngest. She, raising a child, sometimes it can get frustrating when you're talking to yourself. Especially like Jason, I have 2 daughters, so it's a little different. But when you talk to when I'm talking to a female Clarence, whoa, it gets a little it's like, wow, because now you're dealing with the Clarence that got emotions and hormones and a whole bunch of other stuff with it. So but I would say more so the patience part was been passed down.
Okay. All right, and I can attest that I think both of my sons have a little bit of I know the stubbornness that I have. I know I'm bullheaded. I'm proud of it, honestly. That's all right. I am. I know I think differently than a lot of than most people, but I like my thought process fuels me to take on projects that I want to conquer. That's how I see that. And I know my sons, when I sit down and have conversations with them, we make sense to each other, if that makes sense. Things that would need to be further explained outside the group, we understand. And along with that, I can agree, talking to a younger version of myself in a different body, it's kind of like my stubbornness is coming on. You should not do this because I did it. You're going to mess up. I know exactly where you're going, and reverse that to a 20-year-old or a teenager. And speaking to them, like, I hear you. I don't know why you're telling me this, because I'm about to go do this anyway, and I'm gonna do it differently because I know you did it, but I'm not gonna mess up. And then bam, they go mess up, and it's the bullheadedness. The young ram and the old ram until you butt heads, until the young ram realizes, you know what, I shouldn't butt heads. I need to come on this side and be on the same team as you. And I totally understand. And so I deal with the stubbornness from my sons. We go not in a bad way. We just go against each other on certain things. But when we understand each other, it's beautiful. Yep. Is there anything that we have left unsaid to either a parent or to a kid? And I say, we always have the elephant in the room conversation. We don't always have the conversations with a certain individual because there's always next time. I know I gave the situation where I had questions, or I thought that I would have that next conversation with my grandfather that never happened. So now, as 20 years past that, there's way more questions I would ask now than questions I didn't even know about. But some of the things that I wish I would have asked at that time were left unsaid. Do any of you guys have those moments with a parent, father figure, or do you have those moments with your kid? Like, you know what, my son, my daughter did a great job. I'll tell them next time. I'm gonna run out the house and go to the store, but I'll tell them next time.
Yeah. So my father. So my mother's mother passed away 93, and I was actually at work with my dad. We were working, and he knew first, and we worked the whole night. And not till I got home did he tell me. Before I walked in the house, say, "Hey, you go in the house once you know your grandmother passed away, my mother's mother."
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he said, "Be strong for your mother." Right. So the dynamic with my dad was always take care of your mother first, take care of your siblings, he was always last. It was always the dynamic. Mother first, take care of your siblings. He'll be okay. So again, learning from your dad, it's like take care of mom, and that's a heavy thing when mom's crying, right? You just that weighs on you. But the reason why it stood out because I didn't see my grandmother before she passed. I was walking down the street, about to take the subway, and I'm 2 blocks away from her house. And I'm literally looking down the street, and I go, "Oh, I'll see her next week." I didn't see her next week. So I screw a lot of stuff up in life, and you wish you do things different, but you don't call those regrets. I got one regret. That's not seeing my grandmother. So I said, I'll never make that mistake. For anybody, I'll never not have the conversations I need to have. So my mother passed, and people said, "Are you hurt?" It's like, of course you miss your mom, but I had every conversation I ever needed to have with my mother. So she knew how I felt. I knew how she felt. It was never, I wonder if I was a good son, all that stuff. Like, no, I had every conversation with mom. My father's now older, and health's not where it needs to be. And, you know, I'm out here in St. Louis, but I've probably been back in Pennsylvania 3 times in the last 4 weeks to see Pop. And I'm not going to go through life and not have those conversations. So every conversation I need to have, and it's funny, you just mentioned with your sons, you just know. Sometimes, you don't have to explain to anybody else. I can have a conversation with my dad, and we don't even finish the sentence. And I know, we said we had to say, we said 2 words. And we just had a whole conversation. And I do that with my kids too. I've never left the house and said, "I don't love you." I never got off the phone and didn't say, "I love you." Because to your point, you don't know you don't want it to happen, but I'm going to continue to have every conversation so there's no mistaking where you are in my life. You don't have to guess. And I think that's important, especially for your kids.
Yeah, I think that's important, when you say, having those conversations, because you never know what's going to happen. I remember, me and my dad haven't always had the greatest relationship, you know what I mean? But, I've always tried. We getting some kickback. But he, got sick. He's been, dealing with some liver disease and stuff like that over the last couple of years. And it's getting to the point to where it's really bad. So I've been taking him down to Pittsburgh, and we've been having so many conversations. Like you said, you don't even finish sentences. There was a whole lot of, "Man, I didn't even know that was like that," or "Man, I didn't even know that you guys went through that." You know what I mean? Like, so it was just great, to get caught up, because you never know. And it helped me to understand I need to talk to my dad more. Like, I need to, instead of just calling, "Hey, how you doing? What's good? What you doing today? All right, I'll holler at you," just for the sake of calling, just to say I heard your voice. You know what I mean? Have those discussions, you know what I mean? And talk about things, not just in the car, you know what I mean? Then so now when I call my dad, we have deeper discussions on the phone than just being in the car, on that 3-hour trip to Pittsburgh, and then on a 3-hour trip back. Now we have discussions like that every week, where we're on the phone for like an hour once or twice a week, just talking about different things, because I want him to know how I feel about everything. I want to know how he feels about everything. Like you said about, I want him to know he was a good father, you know what I mean? Regardless of everything, you know what I mean? Like, everything was a learning moment. Like, everything I've learned, I'm like, it was never a bad moment in my life. I don't look at the problem, just opportunities to get better. And everything that's happened has made me who I am today. And I love who I am. So if that wouldn't have happened, or things wouldn't have went the way that they were between me and him, I wouldn't be who I am today. I'd be somebody different. I don't know if I'd like that person. So, just looking back and being older now, being a little bit wiser to be able to, when I was younger, it was like, "Oh, my dad, whatever, and my mom, whatever, it's just, I'm me, they don't care, and then when you get older, you start thinking about these things, and it's like, man, they were good parents. Like, what was I thinking back then, and you have these conversations. It was like, wow, now I really know what you was thinking back then that I didn't know, what I mean? Because now you're having these conversations, and it was like, we were discussing earlier that, sometimes your parents don't tell you their successes and all those different things, but at the same time, they don't always tell you why they think the way that they think, or why they went about certain things the way that they did, or why he wasn't around for so long, or just different things. You kind of put the thing, like, if they don't tell you the reason, you're going to make one up in your head. You know what I mean? Or you're believe what you hear. So, but just to have those discussions, you're like, man, I didn't realize those different types of things. And you were a good dad. And you know what I mean? I don't even know why I was thinking those different things. So I agree with you, like, have those discussions. Like, you never know when it's going to be too late, or when, you know, you'll get that phone call. You don't want that. You know what I mean? You don't want that phone call without having that opportunity to say goodbye, or, you know, feel like you had every discussion that you needed to have with that person, so that you can feel confident in celebrating that person's life.
Yeah, I would say, me personally, I believe that there's, when that father is gone, that father figure is gone there, I believe there's always going to be something that, like, man, maybe I should have asked him. You know, like I said, my father's been going 19 years, and we used to watch wrestling every Thursday together in our own house. You know, we didn't have this technology. You know, we're on the phone and it's dead silence for 2 hours or however wrestling is, but we watched it together. And I can tell you, I really miss those times. And like you said, Jason, you said you can say 2 words and you just had a whole conversation. Just me and my dad watching wrestling together, the way that we breathed, you know, like, or grunts and whatever. We had a whole conversation. We knew what it meant. And I go back to it, you know, you're like, I never thought in 2021 that my dad wouldn't be here. You know, I always thought, you know, he would always be, you know, I thought he would be here, you know, to see his grandchildren. You know, he's seen one of them. So there are things that I don't say I regret not asking him, but there are things that, like, man, I wish I would have said, or I wish I would have asked him then, you know. Then you have those people I named, your uncle. They kind of fill in the blanks for you, some of the things that you didn't know. But as far as me, like, saying to my children, when I said I had the 2 girls, I try, you know, I guess it's raising them differently, but, you know, I talk to them and treat them as their queens, and because I need the person that comes into their lives to be kings, to treat them as such. So I talk to them a little different, and I you know, this new hashtag, you know, girl dad, you know, I guess I've been a girl dad for 20 something years now. You know, they are my roles, and I try and have open conversations. And I think it was 2 days ago, 2 days ago, I asked my wife, but then I asked my children, what is it of me that you want me to do to be a better dad? And when you ask that question, you got to be prepared to hear the answer. Because, you know, I thought I was prepared, and the answer I got, I was like, whoo. All right. And, you know, I took it in and everything. And so now, you know, it's to be a better dad. I mean, you should be wanting to work on it every single day. And how are you going to be a better dad if you only go by your expectations? You know, your expectations are slighted. They're jaded one way, you know. So you got to ask the people in your life, the people who look up to you, the people who love you, ask them to be honest with you. And when you hear the answer, you know, don't get offensive. You know, sit back, take it in, digest it, and then work on it. And I believe that's what I'm doing right now. And I believe, like, this form right here, this Father's Day swag, you know, is iron sharpens iron. You know, this right here is this is a great form.
You said something about your, you know, hearing those things, what you do differently. I think I grew leaps and bounds as a father when I actually apologize to my kids. I don't think my parents ever apologized for anything. And I'm saying that they needed to. I respect both my parents dearly, but when I actually apologize to my kids, you can see when you hurt your kids. You see when you hurt your spouse, right? You can see it. You don't have to, words don't have to be spoken. You can see it. And when I said, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Because really, that's what people want. They want to be heard. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Then you just stop. Can you explain it to me again? I want to be a better listener. And I think the relationship, I've always had a great relationship with my girls. I don't use that hashtag. Was it girl dad? No, mine's Brown Girls Rock. That is the hashtag forever. Brown Girls Rock. But yeah, when I apologize, because they're just as valuable, the way they think. We're trying to grow them to be their own independent people. So we need to have real conversations. And I love what you said, Clee. It's not father to son only, right? I need to have a conversation with you as a young adult. And those are important.
Yeah, I see Kevin Holland's watching. He's watching from another stream. He put the comment in, your daughter will make you a better man than you ever thought you could be.
My daughter used to ask, where was I on the highway? So I was, working Philadelphia, Harrisburg, and I'm like, I call him on the way home. I'll be home soon. Where are you? I'm on 83. She's like 8 years old. What exit? Union Deposit. Okay. I'm like, I'm answering this kid. But it made me a better communicator, right? She just wanted to know, when my dad coming home? Now I wish he'd asked when I was coming home. Now it's like, what time you coming home? And that's because they want to do the dishes right before I walk in the house. Make sure Before it was, I just want to see you. So the dynamic changed.
Yeah, I'll be home at 5:30. Okay, I'll start the dishes at 5 o'clock.
Or 5:29, because all you do is put it in the dishwasher.
All right, I believe this has been a good forum. You guys have any other questions, any other comments that you would like to share? I'm happy that we went an hour and a half on a very meaningful discussion. Covered a lot of ground. There's still much more miles to cover that we could cover. But is there anything else that you guys would like to say?
Thank you. How about that, Clee? Thank you for putting this together. And gentlemen, thank you for sharing your own stories. One thing we learned about people, we learn from experience, but we also learn by other people's experience. And I'm a big fan. If I can avoid some of the stuff by learning through you, I'm all for it. So you guys have been transparent, which I think is going to help a lot of people, those that were not on the call. And since it's Father's Day, happy Father's Day, gentlemen. You deserve it.
Yes, same thing. Thank you, Clee. This was definitely a great forum. And I just want to thank you. And then Jason, when you said earlier about, your son never stop being great. Like, he's always great. You are absolutely correct. And I learned something at that moment. So definitely iron sharpens iron. So definitely this forum was great, because I just learned something from each of you just today on this call, man. So appreciate it. I'm not a girl's dad, or a girl's father. I got two boys, but I wish I had that girl so that I could have been a girl father. But I respect everybody for who they are and what they do. And happy Father's Day to everybody, and just good luck and everything moving forward for everyone.
Yes, and again, thank you, Clee, for doing this. This has been I believe a great strengthening of fathers coming together, and just the 6 of us that was on this earlier. I mean, I believe we've touched more than what we realized. We've a lot of people. I believe we touched some people that had questions, or they was going through certain struggles of their lives, and they tuned in, they caught this, and we helped them. So thank you for that. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. And I'll say this, today is a national holiday, Juneteenth. I gotta plug this in. Realize what today is. Let's not commercialize this day and start, a reason to take a day off, whatever. This should be a day that we teach our children. We teach our children the history. So again, happy Father's Day, happy Juneteenth. Appreciate you all.
Yep. Likewise. Happy Father's Day. Thank you all for tuning in. Those of you who tuned in, thank you all on the panel. Thank you for those who could not make it. I know that a lot of schedules were tight and it was very last minute. Thank you, Clarence, for the idea. I can't take full credit on this because this idea was posed yesterday by Clarence, and we hurried up and got things together as best we could. We had a great discussion on it. It's perfect for Father's Day Eve for this weekend. Again, I just noticed while Damone was talking that myself and Damone have 2 sons each, and Stokes and Brown have 2 daughters each. So the panel was split down the middle. As we came to the end, we started off. A few people did drop off, but as we come to a completion, it's half and half. We each got 2 sons. He has 2 sons. You got 2 daughters. The both of you, Stokes and Brown, you both have 2 daughters. Again, thank you guys for being available, making yourself available to have the discussion. Some of the questions, I don't think they were difficult. Some of them may have hit home or been a little trivial, I guess you could say. The crying question, where I said, "Oh, that's a good one," because that's a question I personally wouldn't want to answer if someone asked me. However, I do feel it's necessary to share information because a lot of questions we as men have, and we don't often ask the question, but we want to know the answer to the question. So I think this was a good forum. Again, thank you guys again. I appreciate everything. And for those of you that didn't see the video, I will play it on our exit. But thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you tune in. We got special guests coming on the show. The platforms change, as you see. We're revamping the lab. I don't have the red wall. We're revamping to a new style of the lab, and I got some good surprises coming down the pipeline. So you guys make sure you guys tune in.
Clee, can I say something? One more thing. I would be remiss, if I didn't say, be kind, be great, be kind, smile. It's contagious. Thank you, Shayla Thompson, for the work. I really appreciate that. But I say that not just to say it. I really mean it. Be kind and be great to someone. Your kindness may be the thing that gets someone through today. You never know how the impact that you have on someone. And smile at someone. Let's stop eating lemons. Let's smile. It takes so much to it takes a lot of energy to be upset and mad and frowning all the time. Smile. Let's be happy. Let's love them. But again, Shayla Thompson for the shirt. Be kind, be great, be kind. Smile.
There we go.
Yes, sir.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Check out this video.
Gotta